The story begins with two flight attendants getting dressed, Paula and Jenny going by taxi to the airport. They were doing something pleasant inside the taxi. Upon arrival, they board the plane and make sure they look presentable. The pilot comes out of the cockpit and asks for a cup of coffee. He looks pale and sick, saying he has a cold. He mentions that he might have caught the disease from the dog, as there is a virus spreading among pets in his neighborhood. Jenny is in charge of helping the passengers who will board first. She goes to the waiting area and introduces herself to a grumpy boy, George, who is traveling alone. The next passengers Jenny needs to assist are a doctor, Doc, who cannot speak and is in a wheelchair, and his wife, Bev. While taking the doctor to his seat, the wife explains that he can hear but cannot speak because of Parkinson's. The pilot and co-pilot settle into the cockpit. The younger pilot continues to sneeze, and the older pilot asks if he is okay. Passengers begin to board the plane. A chubby man named Ralph makes jokes about his size before squeezing into the tight seat with difficulty. Professor Henry, carrying a hamster in a cage for his students, tries to put the cage in the storage area, but the cage is too big. The chubby man tries to help, but the hamster ends up biting his finger. Jenny then says that the cage needs to go somewhere else because it doesn't fit there. Hey, what would you do if you came face to face with a zombie on the plane? The movie I'm going to summarize is called Quarantine 2 Terminal. It's a very good movie with an apocalyptic theme that mixes horror, science fiction, and suspense. If you had the bad luck of falling into such an apocalypse, your chance of survival would be practically zero. I didn't expect much from this film, but when I started watching it grabbed me from beginning to end, and I was shocked by the ending. That's why I invite you to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and leave a like to receive the best recaps. Later, when she and Paula meet at the back of the plane, Paula comments that the professor is cute and was flirting with Jenny. Jenny laughs a lot. Before takeoff, passengers put on their seatbelts. The plane is half empty because a large group of tourists cancelled their trip. Paula and Jenny also fasten their belts in the right places. When the plane is in the air, they can unbuckle their belts. Paula and Jenny get up and start walking around the plane. Jenny goes to George and asks how he is doing. He explains that he travels a lot by plane because his parents are divorced. He doesn't like his father's new wife very much, who is much younger. Jenny consoles him and he smiles. Later, Jenny resolves a fight between the professor and an irritated man named Niall, who was using his cell phone, even after being told not to use it during the flight. Henry gets angry because the man doesn't respect the rules. Niall gets angry too, and they almost fight. Jenny tells the professor that she can handle the situation herself. Henry apologizes, and Jenny calms him down. Elsewhere, a young couple, Sylvester and Nika, are kissing and hugging in a way that seems a bit too much for the environment. Jenny discreetly gets their attention, and they stop. An older lady, Louise, is holding her cat while sitting. Jenny tells her to put the cat in the carrier box. Then Jenny goes to Ralph, who seems to be sick. He asks for some water, and Jenny tells Paula to give it to him. Paula delivers the water to him. When she returns, she tells Jenny that the chubby man is feeling better now. Jenny asks the professor if he wants something to drink, but he's busy watching the news. It seems there's a health problem in a building in Los Angeles that has been isolated. This is the same building from the first film. The professor says it's good that their plane is far from the city. When Jenny goes to check on the chubby man, suddenly Ralph vomits on her. He starts saying nonsensical things and wants to get off the plane. Paula grabs a mask and tries to put it on Ralph, but he continues fighting. Paula tells Jenny to go clean up because the man might be sick and could pass the disease to her. They don't see that the old lady's cat is licking Ralph's vomit. When Jenny finishes cleaning, out of nowhere, Ralph appears. He runs down the aisle and knocks Jenny down. He reaches the locked door and yells for the pilots to stop the plane. The young pilot, who is still sick, leaves the controls to deal with Ralph at the door, while the older pilot takes over. Male passengers try to hold Ralph, but he becomes furious. A young man is hit in the head by Ralph. They try to tie him up until they manage to control him. The older pilot prevents the younger one from leaving the plane to prevent Ralph from entering the cockpit and compromising the entire structure of the plane. Ralph passes out, and the passengers calm down. Sheila says she's a doctor and helps examine George. She warns Jenny to watch for signs of concussion in him. The pilots receive orders to land in the nearest city to take care of Ralph. The weather is very bad, so landing will be difficult. Jenny shows the passengers how to protect themselves. Meanwhile, Paula secures the chubby man who is unconscious in the chair. When the plane lands, Ralph suddenly wakes up and bites Paula's face. Jenny quickly pulls her away from the angry man. The two pilots leave the cockpit and help lock Ralph in the bathroom. The older pilot tells Jenny to take care of the safety of the passengers while they keep the chubby man in there. When they exit the plane, they meet an employee who takes care of the walkway, named Ed. He takes them to the exit, but it's closed. He tries another emergency exit then, but when everyone follows him, he is shocked to learn that it is also closed, and that all exits are blocked. The situation worsens when they realize they are being kept in quarantine, with a considerable group of police outside. Jenny gets worried and calls her father because she doesn't know what to do. Ed calls 911, but they are informed that they don't know about the situation on the walkway. The passengers are getting worried and want Jenny to explain some things. Shyla tells Jenny that Paula needs urgent medical help, but the doctor forgot her first aid kit on the plane. Jenny asks Ed to help her return to the plane to help her friend. The loader is afraid of getting sick, but Jenny convinces him. The professor and Niall go along. When they return to the plane, they are frightened to see that the two pilots have disappeared. Ralph is also nowhere to be found. The doctor's wife has also disappeared, and the doctor is sitting there. They open the cargo compartment through an emergency entrance, and Ed enters. He finds the doctor's bag and gives it to Jenny. While the others are still in the cargo compartment, Jenny goes up. She's shocked to see that the younger pilot, now sick and acting like a zombie, is crawling through the plane. What's worse is that the older pilot, who is also sick, is right behind Jenny and grabs her. Fortunately, Niall takes his gun from the bag and shoots the pilot. Ed reaches Jenny and confirms that she is not hurt, but the pilot's blood splatters on Niall. Jenny finds Bev, the doctor's wife, hiding in the dark. She is also sick and tries to attack the group. They manage to lock the wife behind a door. They also take the sick doctor into the walkway, and he ends up joining the rest of the passengers. Now that both pilots are sick and Paula is badly injured, Jenny decides to lead the group. Her first concern is to prevent anyone else from getting sick. That is, to do everything possible not to be bitten or come into contact with the blood of the infected. The group thinks that what is happening is an infection similar to rabies, like the one that happened in the building in Los Angeles. While they are talking, a little mouse falls on the head of the standing doctor and bites him. Jenny notices late and immediately tells them to take care of the doctor. But as a precaution, they close off the doctor and Paula so that the disease does not spread. The people manage to catch the mouse that bit the doctor. They discover it's a white rat that came from a laboratory. George accuses the professor of bringing test rats in a cage that he said only had hamsters. Henry denies it and says it would be impossible to bring rats to the airport since it's forbidden. Jenny believes him, and the two hug. George gets upset because she doesn't believe him and says she's being unfair because she likes the professor. Suddenly, Ralph appears running toward Jenny. She tries to avoid being bitten. The professor also helps push Ralph away. The other people gather, and Ed puts a thick wire around Ralph's neck. Everyone helps suffocate him until he dies from the wire. The police call Ed and say that health officers will enter the walkway to see how the situation is. 4 police officers in special suits enter the building and say they will give them medicine to end the infection. They also say that Doc and Paula should come out of where they are to be vaccinated. Nail's wife Susan, who is pregnant, says she doesn't want to receive a strange medicine. Louise offers to be the first to receive the medicine, but her cat is sick and bites her. As the officers try to hit the cat, behind one of them, the doctor in the wheelchair also becomes infected and bites one of them. The officers shoot the doctor and retreat outside the warehouse. But upon learning that they have been locked in there with the survivors, they break down the door with gunfire. When they leave, Sylvester goes with them, but is stopped by the police along with the officers who left. His girlfriend screams in pain. Ed manages to drag a surviving officer. And after hearing the screams of other infected, the few who survived ran out and entered an empty food truck parked nearby. Niall, who was previously unharmed, is now also sick because of the blood that splattered on him when he shot the pilot. They try to put his pregnant wife in the truck, but he drags her with him. Now everyone is trapped inside the truck. Jenny wanted to go back to rescue her friend. The doctor says to forget it because Paula is infected, and that the medicine the officers were applying was not an antidote at all because the soldiers were about to inject them with liquids of different colors with different doses. In other words, They were testing the survivors who had been exposed to the virus to see which of the vaccines would work. They forced the wounded soldier to admit that there wasn't actually any medicine, and what they were going to give was just experimental drugs. He recounts that his unit discovered that a bioterrorism cell was hidden in an apartment building with a deadly rabies virus. The terrorists had a laboratory there where they tried to make a remedy, but without success. The test was done on rats, which is why it reached the plane. In the end, the officer says there is no cure for the virus. Then he takes the gun and kills himself. The group feels that they have lost all hope, but Ed suggests they can find an empty tunnel to get out. And out of nowhere, Neil appears on top of the truck and grabs Ed's arm. But with the group's help, George presses a button that raises the truck bed and crushes the infected person. They get out of the truck to find a map of the yard to discover where the tunnel is. On the way to the office, Nika is taken by someone sick and the professor disappears. They see the infected Paula. Jenny grabs a tool and kills her friend. They enter the office and start looking for the map. While they are busy, George tells Jenny that he took the professor's suitcase. He discovered that the professor was part of this terrorist group and purposely brought the sick rats onto the plane to spread the virus. Ed finds the map and locates the secret tunnel to get out of this warehouse, but they are attacked by Niall and his wife, who are now also sick. The professor appears. He manages to kill some infected, but he was bitten. George says he found medicine in the professor's bag, so Henry asks George for the antidote, or he would kill Jenny. When Ed tried to grab the professor's gun, he was shot and killed. He takes the antidote and says he just wanted a better future for the planet, that the world needed a new disease. He applies the remedy. Then he takes the boy with him. When Jenny tries to stop him, she is knocked out. The doctor and Jenny try to follow the professor. As Jenny is still weak, Shyla goes ahead. Soon after, an infected appears behind Jenny. She distracts it and finishes it off. Then she meets up with the doctor. The doctor gives Jenny binoculars that show who is infected. When Jenny looks, she sees that the doctor is bitten. The doctor says she was attacked and will sacrifice herself to give Jenny more time. She calls the infected and runs to another side and ends up being killed by them. Jenny finds the boy in a dark tunnel. He says the professor's medicine didn't work and he turned into a weird creature. The sick professor appears and attacks Jenny. The youth grabs the gun and shoots him. The professor is still moving, so Jenny uses a wrench to smash his head. An explosion shakes the terminal, caused by the guards who are trying to eliminate the sick ones. Unfortunately, the door is closed. They have no choice but to go deeper into the tunnel. George gets scared, and Jenny gives him the binoculars so he can see the path. They advance through the tunnel, and the boy realizes with the binoculars that Jenny was bitten by an infected person. Jenny starts to change and asks the young man to go away and move forward without her. The young man doesn't want to leave her, so they continue through the tunnel. They reach a grate at the end of the tunnel. The bars are wide enough for the young man to pass through, and he exits. He calls for Jenny, but she has already become infected and almost catches him. George has no choice but to leave her. The film ends with an infected cat escaping from the passage and heading towards a large hotel, suggesting that the virus will continue to spread. Hey, what rating would you give this movie? I invite you to hit the bell so you don't miss the next summary. And below the video, I'll leave a playlist with summaries similar to this one. If you like this one, you'll like the movies in the playlist. So until next time.